It was a bit of a roller coaster year. We started the year with some real optimism. 2024 had ended with a surge of activity, and then we got all of the tariff uncertainty and the fears of a recession driven by tariffs, and that really upended any optimism we had. Sales fell pretty rapidly across the Metro Vancouver area since then. Have really struggled to recover in the back half of the year while other markets are doing a little better. And you end up with the worst year for sales in 25 years.
Okay, and are there particular cities that took more of a hit than others?
It was pretty broad-based. I would say that parts of what we call our Fraser Valley board, which is Surrey and Langley and Abbotsford, probably took it a little bit harder, but the rest of Vancouver wasn't far behind. Sales were down year over year from a kind of a bad year in 2024, and yeah, you end up with sounds dramatic, but the worst year for sales this century.
Wow, what's that like for agents?
It's difficult, right? There's, agents, realtors thrive on activity, on turnover in the market, and we just didn't have buyers that had the confidence to make transactions work. You have markets though, like Surrey and Langley, markets that are growing really fast, where prices are back to levels we haven't seen in a few years, with stable rates. So we're in a situation where affordability is actually quite a bit better for some of those markets than we've seen in years. We're just not seeing buyers come off the sidelines yet, though we're hopeful for 2026.
Right. Do you have an idea how many listings there are right now, places for sale across Metro Vancouver?
Yeah, across Metro Vancouver, it's about end of the year is always difficult because things drop off. On average, throughout the year, we've had somewhere around 25,000 active listings, which is actually where we want listings to be long term. Like for the province, we want about 45,000 active listings all the time. That's the level that we need if demand was at long run average levels. That's the level of listings we would need to keep markets in balance, keep prices from accelerating. So we've got a decent amount of supply in terms of listings. We just don't have the sales.
Right. Okay. Well, what about we talked about Metro Vancouver in general. What about the rest of the province? Are there cities where property values are up?
Oh, for sure. Markets like the Kootenay, so Cranbrook, or markets in like the Caribou, we have Prince George and some of those markets. They actually kind of shrugged off a lot of the uncertainty effects that plagued other markets. Interestingly, because those are markets, Kootenay in the north, where tariffs have had a significant impact on employment and difficulty with trade have had a significant impact on employment, the local economy. But the housing markets actually had a pretty good year, especially in the Kootenay. Most of the year saw sales that were above 10-year average levels. Prices were rising. So there's certainly markets that have stronger affordability, I think is the thing that ties them together, where markets had a pretty decent 2025.
Okay. Okay. Let's look. I know we'll talk about buyers and sellers in a moment, but what do you think the current market picture means for renters and rent opportunities?
It's probably one of the, for the first time in many years, probably one of the best situations for renters that we've seen. Vacancy rates at the CBC reported at the end of 2025 that vacancy in Vancouver was at its highest level, I think above 3% for the first time in, I think it was a couple of decades. Rents are coming down, at least like turnover rents are coming down. There's lots of supply coming online, and because of federal immigration policy, rental demand is going to be falling. So falling demand, rising supply, that's going to put downward pressure on rents, and it's going to mean higher vacancy rates and more choices for renters.
Okay, so let's break this down even further. For people looking to buy a home in 2026, how would you assess their opportunities?
For certain markets, I would say that it's probably the best opportunity in years, especially for a market again like Surrey or Langley. Population growth in those markets is some of the highest in Canada, so the demand is there. They're going to get the SkyTrain kind of linking those cities with the rest of the SkyTrain network in the next few years, and prices have come down a lot since 2022. That combined with stable interest rates means that affordability is really strong in markets that are really set to grow. So in a market like that, I'm pretty optimistic. Other markets, Vancouver prices didn't come down that much. That's kind of one of the real stories of 2025 is the resiliency of prices. We're sitting here talking about sales being their lowest in 25 years, and prices in the Greater Vancouver area were down like 5%. Um, Prices have just been extraordinarily resilient. Sellers are not, panicking. Prices are just sort of adjusting to market conditions, but they're not falling dramatically. So that's been really surprising. If you told me we're going to have the highest inventory in a decade and the worst sales in 25 years, I probably would have forecasted a much larger decline in prices.
Well, that's okay. Well, let's talk a little bit more specifically then about the sellers. Maybe it's people looking to downsize. Maybe they've been holding it. Maybe this is their nest egg. I don't know. What would be your advice to sellers right now?
I think 2026 is going to be a better year, but you still are going to have to be realistic about pricing. One thing that always happens in markets is that sellers and buyers start very far apart in terms of pricing, and sometimes it takes a while for them to agree. We're still in a situation right now where buyers are probably trying to lowball, sellers are still anchored to prices that might not be realistic to make transactions happen quickly. So in 2026 maybe get a little bit more realistic about pricing if you really want things to move. Although we are, I think, going to see a level of sales activity that is picking up over the first half of this year.
What gives you that optimism?
It's mostly the combination of two things. One is we've had 3 years of sales that are well below average, and we just came off for the worst year in 25 years. In markets where there is a lot of underlying like latent demand. There's a lot of young people, there's a lot of people in their 30s that would really like to own a home. Just they need the confidence to be able to make that transaction work. So that pent up demand just means mean reversion is like a powerful thing in the universe. I think we're going to like revert to the mean level of sales, the average level of sales in time. And we have fading uncertainty. That's the other big part. If it was uncertainty that was causing a lot of the hesitancy on the behalf of buyers, I think in 2026 a lot of that uncertainty is going to be fading. It's not going to be gone, but we're going to have a resolution, I think, to the tariff question. We're going to have a renegotiation of CUSMA. We have a Supreme Court decision about the part of the tariffs that have been levied on other countries that maybe takes away some leverage from the Trump administration. So either way, we're probably not going to be talking as much about tariffs and the damage tariffs might do through 2026 the same way as in 2025.
No, it's an interesting and it is an optimistic prediction. I hear you, but I don't know. I don't know if others share that feeling about fading uncertainty. But I'll take your point. So here we have
well, from a level of 2025 that was unprecedented. It's starting to come down, and I don't think we're going to spike back to the levels we saw in 2025.
Okay, no, I take your point. So let's again look at the real estate landscape. There are a lot of unsold units out there right now. How are the current market conditions affecting decisions by developers and investors? What about on that front?
Just like the resale market, the pre-sale market, where people purchase a condo well in advance of its construction, was very weak. If you don't have pre-sales, then you don't have housing starts. So one of the issues with weaker demand and difficulties getting supply to market, everything else, we're starting to see condos starting to kind of pile up. So newly completed but unsold units are at their highest level, I think, in 20 years. And most of those, a lot of those in Metro Vancouver are apartment units. We saw this before in the 2010s. Right after the financial crisis, we had a pretty significant increase in unsold new homes, the inventory of unsold new homes, and it led to a pretty massive slowdown in building. That slowdown in building meant that we had a massively undersupplied market through the 2010s, and it collided with a rebound in demand and produced massive accelerations in home prices, which led us to where we are today, to today's affordability. We really don't want to repeat that cycle. We have the inventory just about at the same peak as we had back in 2010. We really need some policy to get directed at getting that inventory down so we can get developers starting new projects and hitting the pretty aggressive targets that the province and the federal government have set for housing.
What kind of policy changes specifically?
Well, the most controversial probably is we probably need to allow at least some non-resident investment. RBC estimates that to hit federal government housing targets, we need about $2 trillion in capital. We can't source all of that through domestic savings in Canada alone. We're going to probably need to allow non-resident investors to at least buy pre-sales and new housing. We got lots of guardrails. We have all kinds of different taxes to make sure that those units aren't empty. But the foreign buyer ban is really working against our ability to fund that new construction. The other one I think is pretty easy is eliminate the GST on new homes for not just first-time home buyers the way the government currently has, but all buyers. There's first-time home buyers don't really buy new homes. They're more expensive. The down payments are higher. So why not direct some of that demand towards working down the really high levels of inventory both in Vancouver and Toronto and other places, so that we can get construction going and we can at least have a chance at hitting some of those really aggressive targets.
Brendon, really, we've covered a lot of territory here for the beginning of the year. We're going to check on some of your predictions in a few months and see how things unfold. But we really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Always dangerous to check on predictions of economists.
You take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
That is Brendon Ogmundson. He is the chief economist of the BC Real Estate Association.